This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Episode 85 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz. I'm alongside Liam Baum. And right now, we're pretty excited. It's been a very, very, very boring summer, aside from the fact that the Canadiens selected Ivan Demidov back in early July, late June, whatever it was. But nonetheless, today, August 19th, it's a Monday. We're getting closer and closer to the start of the season. Probably around, I want to say 3:30 p.m. today. Get a notification on Twitter. Always got to have Elliot Friedman's notifications on. The Habs are in deep trade talks with the Columbus Blue Jackets for Patrik Laine. So, of course, my first instinct is send that over to Liam, send that over to a couple more friends. Get pretty excited. 15 minutes later, maybe even 20 if you want to push it. 20 minutes later, Patrik Laine has been traded to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Jordan Harris. And the Canadiens have also acquired a 2026 second round pick, no salary cap retention, with an $8.7 million cap hit for the next 2 seasons for Patrik Laine. Liam, initial thoughts, reactions. Patrik Laine, Montreal Canadien.
Yeah, I mean, first reaction was I just called you right away. And honestly, we've been talking about this for so many months, probably since before the deadline even. And all the comments. I feel like we made a TikTok video about it too, maybe.
Oh,
But
we did. And I
yeah,
put it on shorts and stuff. It did pretty well,
and
actually.
yeah, exactly. And all those comments were makes no sense. Line to Montreal makes no sense. He's too much of a distraction off the ice. On the ice, he doesn't care. He doesn't fit in a big market. Well, I'm gonna give us our flowers here because we predicted this and we were right. And I don't think, and both of us are just so happy because finally the Canadiens go out and just make that big move that you wouldn't expect the Canadiens to do. You know, the Canadiens are not a free agent team that targets the big free agents. They're not that team at the deadline that goes out and targets the biggest fish. But now they pretty much got the guy with one of the highest cap hits, and you know he has a good track record in terms of point production and skill on the ice because he's still young. He's still got a lot of skill in him. And yeah, it's an exciting time because I feel like we've not really experienced this in a long time.
No, I think that's probably where my excitement stems from as well. It's literally the fact that we're sitting here at the end of August, entering a season where, look, Liam, I'll be completely honest with you. Like, I didn't know really what we were supposed to expect for this next season. The Canadiens are in a interesting spot considering that they're trying to get out of this rebuild, but I don't think that they're out of it completely yet. They've made the right picks so far. Slavkovsky, they went out and drafted Reinbacher. We'll see what he does this season. They went out and drafted Demidov, smash pick. But these guys have not, Slavkovsky's just getting there, but Reinbacher, Demidov, we haven't seen anything from them yet. Lane Hudson, haven't seen much from him yet. So you're still getting out of that phase. But then Ken Hughes pulls the trigger and says, you know what? I don't know if we want to accelerate this rebuild, but let's put the team that we have in front of us in a better position to succeed. And he did just that. Gave up minimal assets. Jordan Harris, very solid defenseman, but we don't need defensemen on this team, as we could see from Logan Mailloux and Reinbacher and Hudson going to make their debuts sooner rather than later. Or Lane Hudson and Mailloux have, but I'm just saying, full time. And I don't know. I mean, this guy has, I won't say all the tools in the toolbox, but has pretty much every offensive asset that you would want out of a player. He's 6'5". He scored 40 goals in 44 goals in 2017-18. Second overall pick. 36 goals the year before that. I mean, Liam, like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a guy that can walk into this team, turn his career. I say turn his career around as if he, wasn't point per game before this past season, but get back in that scoring column, put up 35, 40 goals. Is that out of the question?
No, look, he scored 44 goals 7 years ago, and everyone's saying, you can't just out of nowhere make a 25-year-old, 26-year-old just go back to his old form, but he never really played in a place that he enjoyed playing in. And I feel like that's finally changed for him, and he's finally in the right mental space. And if we're just looking at 2 years ago and 3 years ago, he was a point per game player. So this is definitely not out of the question at all. And considering he's going to be playing with some very highly skilled players, he's going to be on a power play one role, I'd assume. I don't think this is out of the question at all. Like 35 goals seems like the floor at this point. And I was listening to that interview, or the player, whatever it is, what's it called?
Press conference?
The press conference, yeah, that he did at 6 p.m. today. And there was a question that was asking him if he wanted to return to being a 20 to 30 goal guy. And he said, no, I don't want to be a 20 to 30 goal guy. I want to be a 40, 50 goal guy, just like how I used to be. And a lot of the comments were, oh, we only did it once and it was 7 years ago. It's like, but that's not the point. The point is that he is capable of doing this. And now that he's in an environment that he wants to be in, and maybe it's not a winning team, maybe it's not a Stanley Cup contender, it's definitely a new environment that he clearly wanted to be in. And I think that's the most positive thing coming out of this.
Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. Guys, this is the perfect time to get in and start betting on futures for football, for hockey. These seasons are right around the corner, and there's no time to wait. And if you are new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023. All rights reserved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, you can chalk it up to it was 7 years ago, but let's not act like his past few seasons haven't been incredible. I'm going to pull up a stat here and I'll let you kind of take it away. But Laine has had 119 points in his last 130 games. I'm going to put it up on the screen just for everyone to see. But what are your thoughts about that? 119 points in his last 130. Everyone's talking about the fact that he's washed and his cap hit is too high, but I mean, he's pretty much point per game for a season and a half.
Yeah. And he was on the Columbus Blue Jackets, which probably doesn't help his case either. So put him in a lineup that has a bunch of playmakers and guys who know how to move the puck compared to a Columbus team. Yeah, sure, he was playing with Johnny Gaudreau, but that really wasn't lasting very long. And he was always switching around lines as well. So hopefully he can find that combination, whether it's with Dak, whether it's with Suzuki, whether it's with Slav on a line, who knows what it is, but hopefully there's some consistency that comes with it, and he goes back to that form he was just 2 years ago, where he was putting up a point per game pace amid all the distractions, all the off ice things, all the criticism he was getting. And I really feel like he's a changed person, and it really did sound like that in that press conference he was doing. So look, 119 points is in the last 120 games is no joke. Like, this is an elite player. And considering he was not in an environment he really wanted to be in, that's a pretty decent amount of points for a guy who, wasn't playing to his full capacity.
And Liam, you mentioned something there at just the top of your argument, and I think that's probably one of the most important things to highlight right now. is the fact that he was going through a lot of stuff. Now, whether we don't know what it was, but it doesn't change the fact that from his perspective, it was tough to deal with. It was tough for him to get on the ice while also managing whatever off ice issues that he was dealing with. And look, everyone's going to come on here and say, oh, well, you're putting him in an environment that just, subjects him to so much criticism and so much heat and the lights and the cameras. I get that. But I also do think that the organization, the culture, since Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, and Martin St. Louis have stepped into this organization, has really changed the way that players feel about playing in this city. It's more positive. It's more oriented towards a collective, towards winning a cup, towards collective success, as opposed to focusing on the one guy that enters the building and making sure that he's the star every single night, like a Jonathan Drouin, So
100%.
I think that, yeah, we can make all the arguments we want that it might still be hard to play in Montreal. There's no doubt about that. But what I'll tell people. Yeah, go look at the 5 or 6 other guys on the Montreal Canadiens that are 22, 24 years or younger that are thriving in this market. Suzuki, Caulfield, now Slav. We're waiting on Kirby Dach. Newhook had a pretty solid season, all things considered. There are players that have success at young ages in this market. And I think it's just a matter of time for Laine to get on a good line, to get on a top power play unit, and tuck 30 goals.
Yeah. And I think just adding even more onto that in terms of the culture, don't think for a second that Gordon, Hughes, and St. Louis didn't do their homework about this, because look, Montreal is not a winning team, and Laine made it clear that he's not a 19-year-old coming into the league anymore trying to build up a team that just had the second to last pick. This is the time for him to win. He's aspiring to win like any middle-aged, even like pre-prime hockey player would do. But the difference is, when he was on that tail end in Winnipeg and going over to Columbus, those teams weren't working towards anything. They weren't making playoffs. They weren't good teams. And look, you can argue that Laine might have had an impact on that negatively because his attitude was so poor, but he's coming into an environment where a team is working towards something, like you mentioned. It's not a downhill, it's not a downhill curve right now. We're heading upwards. We're increasing. We're getting somewhere. So don't expect Laine to be all pouty and everything just because the Canadiens don't win games. He knows what he's coming into. This isn't going to be a surprise when the Canadiens probably don't make the playoffs this coming year. But he's happy to be somewhere where a team is coming together, that there's a young core, and that sooner rather than later, they're going to be in a winning position. And he's going to be contributing towards that, and he's helping speed up the process even more.
I love it. And honestly, on that topic too, what you made me think of is that I was watching Kent Hughes' press conference, and one of the reporters asked him, well, what's one thing that stood off the page for you about Laine? We know about his offensive skill. He might lack in other departments, but what's one thing that stood off the page? And what he mentioned is his will to win, his will to contribute, not necessarily, it doesn't like, he literally said, Kent Hughes literally said, and I'll air quotes it, I'll try and paraphrase it to the best of my ability. His success is not going to be defined by how many goals he scores. It's going to be defined about how he's able to contribute to this team in a positive aspect, whether that's with his attitude or whether it's with his dedication or whether it's on the score sheet. And he compared him to Slav in a sense, where the reason that the Habs went out and drafted Slav is, because of his skill and what he brings to the table, but also because his culture and his willingness to get better and to drive towards something greater than just, individual production. So I think that Laine, of course, in his past years, he's thrived a lot on point production, and I think that's what he's been known for in his goal scoring. But I think he's 26 years old. He's coming into a change of environment, a completely different management team, a team that, like you said, is working towards something. And I think it's just a matter of time before he gets acclimated to the environment and really starts to thrive. So look, I don't even think we're shooting for the stars here. We're not asking for a 70, 75 point season out of Laine right off the rip. We're just asking for some positive contribution. And I don't think that there's any denying that we can expect that.
Yeah, we're looking for some health, and we're looking for him to get back to the form he used to be, because this isn't a one-step process. This is, it's a commitment. And although his contract is only 2 years, I don't think we mentioned it's an $8.7 million cap hit. And should we get into the trade? We didn't even mention what the exact trade was, but either way, it's an $8.7 million cap hit for 2 years. And, after this, I'm definitely hoping that he's going to take those positive steps forward and the Canadiens are able to re-sign him.
Yeah,
But
I hope so too. And I have a question for you about that. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun here, and kind of just to reiterate, if you guys are, just if you guys in here at the top, it was Patrik Laine and a second round pick in 2026. So basically a cap dump on from Columbus in order to acquire Jordan Harris. So look, from a pure value perspective, it looks amazing. But my question to you is, Liam, it's like, yeah, and I agree with you. I'd love to see him re-sign in 2 years, especially if things are going well for him. But do you think that there's ever a world that he would get more than he's being paid right now?
he'll be 28 when that happens. Look, I don't think it's impossible, but considering this pay scale, I don't like to call it a pay scale because it's not really a pay scale, but just the way Kent Hughes likes to pay players and the way he talked about it, especially today, he was like, well, I wasn't the one who offered this contract. So, you can't control that. It just seems like he's not going to pay anybody more than Suzuki. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think it's a positive thing because once Laine sees this, this, it's more of an idea that's part of the culture of the Canadiens. Once he sees it and the winning begins to happen, I think he'll be all for it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a world where he's going to ask for 10 million if he scores 40. If he scores 60 goals,
Sure.
maybe it's a different story, but realistically we can't expect that from you just can't expect it. It's maybe he has a Reinhardt season, but who knows? Like you can't predict that. It's very rare.